to keep right.
Everyone, I hope you're ready to prepare to go there. I know I am. It is Wednesday, October 20, 2021. Thank you so much for investing this time to work on yourself and to show up in the future ready. You know, working on yourself is like a full-time job. So it just makes sense that we would show up every day, right? My name is Peter, and this is an extended daily coaching journey for friends and leaders alike who want to practice leading themselves and staying focused on the future. And we have started a pretty important conversation this week, understanding the differences between our rhythms and our systems. We need both, but if we mix them up, we'll get the wrong results. And so that's why we want to talk about it some more. But before that, I want to start with some opening comments. So thank you guys. Go ahead and say hi in the chat. Let me know. It's really cool that we've got a group here. We've got some regulars, some frequent flyers, so to speak. And it really does encourage me. And it helps me to think of the content that I'm creating. I have specific people in mind. I'm thinking of Joshua. I'm thinking of Xavier. I'm thinking of SA. I'm thinking of Eric. I'm thinking of so many friends who are also leaders, and y'all inspire me. You are just crushing it in so many areas. You're leading your families well. You're investing into other people on your teams. You're doing, music and entertainment. You're also starting businesses. You're in ministry. It's just a crazy, eclectic company of pioneering leaders. And I feel like a personal connection with the pioneers. You guys, I can relate. But pioneering leadership is unique in the fact that it goes unnoticed for a while. And then it shows up after the fact, and people say, "Oh yeah, we did need that. We did need to listen. We did need to go in that direction." And you're not going to hear "thank you" for a while, but let me just say it proactively: thank you, thank you, thank you, because we're going to need you and what you have and what you bring and what you represent to go the distance and make a difference. And so that is my little sappy introduction for now. It's my observation and conviction, really, that most people don't know how to lead others into a better future unless and until they figure out how to lead themselves there first. And so that's why Prepare to Go There is a call to action. It's just a conversation that adds more fuel to your focus. You hear this conversation and it gets you going, and you think about it afterwards, and you add your own insights to it, and then it just kind of helps you stay on the path. And so I want you to better lead yourself, and I want you to stay focused on your future. If this resonates with you, I want to invite you to join this community. The group is called Future Friends. It's just an informal name that I have for y'all, and we want to help each other show up to the future ready with the right heart and the right head and the right skills, all of that. Once a week, I send out an email on Fridays. It's a roundup of all of the coaching content that we've gone through, makes it accessible to you. And I also share info and incentives with all the projects I'm working on. And I am working on projects for sure. We just finished a leadership mastermind we pulled together online, and it was So fun. It's about 8 or 9 of us pulled together, and I want you to be a part of the next round. It's called the Future Focused Leadership Mastermind. And then I just announced in my last email that I have been quietly, secretly working on a book project for you and with you in mind. And I really want you to get a hold of it in Q4, so that way it's just like rocket fuel for 2022. And it's called Field Guide to Your Future. And I'll explain more about it later. But I'm using the 100th live stream of Prepare to Go There as some artificial urgency. And I'm kind of pushing myself into a corner so that way I can do a lot of the things that I've been thinking about for y'all. So please say a prayer as I am cramming to either pre-launch or launch or something with those projects in mind. Okay. Today we want to talk about rhythms and systems again. What are they? They're similar but not the same. And my thesis and my encouragement to you is, don't get caught up in all of the fanfare around systems. Systems are very good. Systems are very important. But even if you have a great system, you still have to lead yourself. You still have to, if you wouldn't want to do the system, then don't think that you're just going to delegate it and abdicate that responsibility with it. It really comes back to your personal rhythms. Can you keep up with that system? You can have the best system in the world, but if you're not going to commit to follow through with it, then you wasted more time. You were tinkering and building this perfect system, which was a time investment, and then you couldn't even implement it successfully. And so you really hit this failure to launch, and now you're that much further behind. So actually getting rhythms down and investing the time in your personal rhythms will help you grow as you go. You'll learn things and pick up things along the way. So just a very practical example is Prepare to Go There. This show, I had ideas, but I knew that I didn't have enough developed or enough critical mass or enough momentum to actually begin with those ideas. And so I said, what can I do? And I just started showing up daily on weekdays. And, we're in episode 88, which is crazy. So I've gained momentum. I've gained very needed experiences that have helped me not only get to this point, but really set me on a course to go further than here. So my question is, rhythms top systems. We have to be leading ourselves with good, solid calendar rhythms. When we're leading ourselves well on the daily rhythm, the weekly rhythm, the monthly rhythm, the quarterly rhythm, annual rhythm, when we're leading ourselves with personal rhythms, then we can better serve, support, and empower teams with systems, and we will use systems ourselves. Absolutely. But by and large, I might be, taking a leap here, but in my view, you're going to build systems that you're going to work on personally, but you're also going to share those systems with other people. And obviously you share rhythms with other people too. You all want to show up at the same time, and you want to make sure that your calendar commitments don't clash or crash with other people's calendar commitments. But generally, you've got to keep track of yourself and make sure that you're showing up at the right places at the right time. And then those systems are going to be, building on your behalf. So we talked about rhythms, top systems. I've got a load of PowerPoints here to work through. The question we want to tackle today is what happens when we do keep rhythms, but we don't have systems to go in them. I'll give you some examples. You block out the time on your calendar to do work, but then when you show up for that scheduled appointment, you don't know what to do. So you're wasting time. Here you are, the ultimate timekeeper with nothing to pass the time. And another example, you made a commitment to work out each week, but the quality of your workouts aren't even worth keeping up with it. And so you have this idealistic contract, that you've made a commitment to, but it's not really panning out. It's not as cool as you thought it would be. It's not as successful as you thought it would be. It's not working out the way you thought it would be. It's becoming pointless. Another example is you show up to a meeting thinking that showing up is enough, but oh yeah, you're unprepared as well. You're not prepared to contribute to the meeting, or you're not prepared to lead the meeting because you overemphasize the rhythm of having meetings again and again than the actual system that's going to help you accomplish things with and through that. Basically, you would, whenever you overestimate rhythms without systems, you say, oh yeah, I'm very committed to my personal rhythms. You might think of yourself as a long-term planner, a long-term thinker. You're like, yeah, I'm all about longevity. I'm all about sustainability. I'm all about going the distance. But if you're not going to build systems that make those moments, those commitments successful, then what you're really saying is you don't respect your time, and you don't respect other people's time as well, because you're asking people to make a commitment to this long-term run, but you don't have a path to grow. You don't have a path to scale. And so the mantra becomes, there's always next time. It's okay. There's always next time. This was good practice. I mean, I've fallen into that trap so many times saying, well, this was practice. We'll get it next time. And I'm all about, growing underground. I'm all about putting in the work. But they say, insanity is doing the same thing, expecting different results. So you can't keep saying, well, there's always next time. There's always next time. There's always next time, because you expect the rhythm itself to make the difference, but you don't know how to get different results. So we want to talk about the relationship between rhythms and systems, and just to bring any new people in, you have daily routines. Those are super important. You might have a morning routine, a workout routine, a weekly planning session. That's like a routine in and of itself. It's what you do over and over again. But then you have rhythms, these calendar rhythms, or how often or how frequent you're going to do things. And then you have systems, which is the how, the actual process that you approach all of these areas in your life. And so our life, like our body, is made up of all these systems. You got circulatory system and nervous system and digestive system and muscular and bone and all this stuff going on. But somehow it fits together and somehow it works together. And it's because you have rhythm that's keeping all that on beat, on tempo, so they can work together and not work against each other. And your life is made up of different systems, and you need well-defined, well-built systems to help you move forward with all these directions, all these different life fronts in your future. But many times, if we don't value rhythms and if we don't let rhythms lead, then those systems will clash or they'll crash. We've talked about that before with the calendar. So, the first big idea here is that your rhythms should go first. And the reason rhythms go first is because you want to make sure that the systems will actually last. When the rhythms go first, your systems will last. If you just build the system because you're excited about it and you make this commitment without really counting the cost, without comparing the opportunity costs of what else could be available, you're going to build these systems, make this commitment, and you're, going off unprepared. But when you notice your rhythms and you navigate decisions based on calendar rhythms, hey, could I keep this up? Would I do this every day? Would I do this once a week? Would I do this twice a month? Would I do this, 3-4 times a year? This is important to me, but it's not the only thing that I'm a part of. So how could I make all of these different areas of my life flow better together? And it's actually when you find you're noticing the rhythms that are already there, and you're not trying to make something happen. You're not trying to force a rhythm. You're not trying to fake a rhythm. You just go with the flow, so to speak. So I've been putting together some visuals because I wanted to visualize this myself. And I'd love for you to, share your input as well. But I want you to see this diagram. We're going to look at this a few different ways. So it's very basic. Here we go. The vertical are your systems, and that refers to the size of your team as well as the scaling that team can produce. So it's team, basically how big or small whatever you're doing is going to be, how much you can process, how much you can produce. Now, the rhythm is horizontal because that is your timeline. The rhythm is those calendar cycles that help you keep going, 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 going. And that's the time that you're investing. And it's also the timing. So there's a sense of timing that comes with all of this. So this is the way I imagine things look like when you have systems, but you don't have good rhythms, right? That was yesterday. And basically, you will go fast, but it won't last. You put a system in, you're going to see initial success. You're going to, see it work, but then it's going to come crashing down because you didn't build in the rhythm first. There's a story I heard, whether it's true or not, is not as relevant to just making the point. So I'll just introduce it as an analogy. But the way I heard it was there was a builder, and he was building I think like a college campus, or, this group, they were building a college campus, and they decided to leave the sidewalks, to not build the sidewalks for a year. They just had the buildings, the parking lot, and they said, let's just see where people walk. And so they let that happen for a few months. And over time, people were just hitting the same pathway to get from the parking lot to the doors. And then after a few months, they could see where the natural walkways were. And then they put sidewalks there. Now, I've heard that referred to as, the difference between strategy and culture. Culture is the way people naturally go. That's the footpath people wear out and create. And then the structure and the systems you have, that's like the sidewalk that you're building. But let the rhythms lead, and then you'll actually see where and how things will go. Systems without rhythms, you can go fast, but you won't last. You won't go far without it. Okay. This could apply to um, goals you've set. This could apply to projects that you're sharing with your team, initiatives. And unfortunately, what happens is this creates a lot of distortion and echo, so to speak, because, okay, that system didn't work. Let's try something else. We make a new system. We make a new system. And the solution we adopt often is, instead of working on the rhythms of the current systems, we just move on to a new system. So now we want to answer the question, what happens if we do have a sense of rhythm? We do look at the calendar a little bit. We do understand that we repeat things, that we live with patterns in mind. And so we do kind of think about that, but we don't have good systems. What happens when you don't have good systems to support, to build off of those rhythms you're making? Well, you're not going to make good music. You're going to have a tempo, but you're not going to have any sounds, any music, any instruments to fill it in. And what happens is, rhythms without systems will lead to turnover. Turnover. I'm not just talking about team turnover, even though we'll get to that, but I'm really referring to your own turnover. Personally, you will change your mind. You will change your plans. You will invest a lot of time to figure out that you cannot make something successful long term. And you'll be forced to do everything, particularly in your team, because no one else can read your mind. You are operating off of some unseen rhythm. There's something that you're doing that makes sense to you, but other people can't get on board with that. They can't hear the music in your head, figuratively. And so they don't know how to keep up with your movements, your methods. They don't make sense because you haven't externalized what you do into a system. You've just personalized everything you do into a title. So this is kind of the way I imagine that looks. Rhythms without systems. You will go far. I mean, you'll keep it up because you've got this built-in pace setter. I was going to say pacemaker, but you'll have this built-in pace setter that keeps you going. I mean, you just keep clicking, keep ticking. You're, like Finding Nemo, just keep swimming, just keep swimming. You really don't have any sense of strategy, any sense of, tactical direction, but you just have a general sense of, forward. And so you just keep going. You go at your own pace. It's sustainable. It works for you. But even though it works for you, it may not work for other people. And so you'll just be going at your own pace, but you're not going to grow because you have your own personal rhythms. You haven't built on top of that systems that help a team grow, that help a team scale, that help a team take things further than your carrying capacity. And so you'll have some success, but then over time, there it goes. Very, very slow crawl. It's a very slow plateau. And you don't realize it. And it's just kind of a little bit less each time, just kind of writing the bare minimums instead of momentum. But what I want to encourage you with is they can go together. They should go together. And I'm noticing some notes here, so I'm going to go back. Rhythms without systems. You'll have the feeling of you're going far, but you're not really going far. You're just going slow. So, and what happens is, you're going so slow that you can't grow with other people. And then what happens is you pull together at a meeting with whoever is in that circle. And now I'm kind of referring to a team context. And you may say, okay, guys, the answer to where we are is we just need to double down. We need to double down on what we're already doing. Okay. We're not going to reinvent the wheel. We're just going to double down and keep rolling. And we do that because we think that doubling down makes us exempt from leveling up. But for real, if what you're doing is working, then just keep working it. But if what you're doing isn't working, then you need to keep working on it. And if working on what you're doing has made a difference, then don't think coasting is now going to be the reward for climbing. We don't climb all that time to suddenly coast on the other side. We climb so that way we can get a new view and we can see the reward of climbing, and it motivates us to keep climbing. And then in a team space, I'm talking to leaders here, don't ask people to double down if you don't have a path or a system to help them level up. Don't ask people on your team to double down with their rhythms if you don't offer systems that help them level up. But I believe, I'm sure like you do, that rhythms and systems can go together. They just have to go in the right order. You have to focus on the internal motivation in each person and equip them with self-leadership. Let them take ownership of the calendar and make sure that they realize how their personal rhythms will enable or handcuff the team systems. So this is what we're going for, more or less, right? It's the learning curve is going up and to the right. We're growing, and that's because rhythms are leading systems. We know how things will actually work because we have put it through the simulator of the calendar. We see it working. All the projections they make sense on the calendar. And now we're going to make every day count because it has to. And the mindset behind a healthy, growing, multiplying culture, team culture, is we know what it takes. We have to keep going. We have to keep growing. When I say keep going, it means that we have rhythms that make this commitment sustainable. And then when I say keep growing, it means we have systems that are producing results and we're scaling. And I just want to bookmark this, and maybe we can come back to it if we have the time. But I do want to talk a little bit more about the turnover situation, because I said if you overemphasize systems over if you emphasize systems over rhythms, you're going to risk burnout because you're going to be driving. Systems don't have a real sense of time or timing. They just keep driving. But when you have rhythms in place, you can kind of safeguard the momentum, and you're growing and you're scaling sustainably and at a pace that people will appreciate. And that's super important. We're not just human doings, we're human beings. We have rhythms of rest and work, rhythms of solitude and connection and contribution. We have rhythms that we have to abide by because we we do what we do and we offer that up with gratitude. We say, hey, we're not driving this thing. We're going to do things by design, and then we're going to see the results therein. And so what you're seeing here is kind of the recommendation. How do you make rhythms and systems work? You stair step your systems with very clear rhythms. If you want to grow your health, if you want to grow your relationships, if you want to grow personally, professionally, learn how to notice rhythms. And you've got to be very clear on when those rhythms start and stop. So that way you can then build a stair step effect to say, okay, this is the time we're looking up, we're going up. This is the time we're pausing, we're evaluating. This is the time we're holding steady. This is the time we're going up. This is the time we're holding steady. This is the time we're getting ready. And you're now moving with a cadence that helps you take steps forward and take steps upward. All right. Let me get back to these notes. Rhythms are like the train tracks. This is a very heads up thing. When I mean looking at your rhythms and looking at the calendar, most people, their calendar is kind of filled in 1 or 2 months ahead. Maybe there's a few big rocks on the calendar. Maybe it's very detailed 1 or 2 weeks out, but then it gets very, very sparse as you go further and further out. It's kind of like tracks that go nowhere. You have to keep putting those train tracks down. You have to keep going deeper and deeper into your calendar. And rhythms help you go deeper and deeper, because I don't know what is going to happen 6 months from now. I don't know where I'm going to be. I don't know what I'm going to do. But now there is something I do know about. If prepare to go there is important, and if prepare to go, I have to make this decision. Do I want prepare to go there to keep going 6 months from now? Well, then I have a rhythm to put into that calendar. I know it's going to be clipping along every day. I know what my morning routine is going to look like, and that's going to be clipping every day. And I have different team moments, team meetings that are going to happen every week on, Tuesdays, every month on first Wednesdays. And so now I have rhythms. These are repeatable decisions that have already been made, and they help me put train tracks deeper and deeper down the calendar. So rhythms are good. They're saying, hey, we're making the commitment to show up, to be here, to do this. I've used the metaphor of a tightrope. And if you don't make a commitment, you don't really drive the stake in on the other end of the canyon, which is very drastic. It's a very drastic example here. But let's say you say, I'm going to, do this tightrope walk across this canyon part. If you don't put that down as a hard and fast commitment, unwavering commitment, there's not going to be enough tension to hold your weight when you get halfway through. So you have to make a commitment in the future. You got to put your flag in the future and say, hey, we're going there one way or another. It'll either be 10% good, or it'll be 90% great, or it'll be 110 above our expectations. But we're not wondering whether we're going to do this or not. We're just now working on how good this commitment is going to turn out. And so we're putting the train tracks down. This requires us to be looking heads up, right? We're looking ahead because train tracks are taking us somewhere. Every time we're laying tracks down, where does this take us? If I commit to do this thing for 3 months, if I commit to do this thing for 6 months, if I commit to do this thing for 3 years, 10 years, where is it going to lead us? Where's this going? And so we're thinking about how often we're going to show up and do something, how long we're going to do something, that is the leadership conversation, looking out, looking ahead for these rhythms. And so really, before you try anything, start anything, do anything, you really do need to go ahead down the calendar to see if you have enough room to run. Now, if you just have a wide open calendar and it's blank, you may feel like, oh yeah, it's wide open. Why not? Well, the reason why not is because it doesn't mean that you have free time. It means you are running blindly. Okay. Anytime you see white space on your calendar, don't congratulate yourself unless you have created a real block of time that says free time. It's not free time. Someone else can take that time, hijack that time from you. So you have to count the cost. You have to be willing to commit to a rhythm before you regret it later on. You have to filter your decisions in terms of years. You have to say yes in years. Say yes in years, because that's what it's going to take to go the distance, make a difference with your health, with your fitness, with your finances, with your partnerships, your relationships, with your business ideas. If you've got a movement in your heart, you've got to say yes in years, and rhythms help you visualize that. So filter your decisions with critical questions. How long will this last? How far will this go? Where will this take us? If we do commit, how long can we keep this up? Rhythms will then set the course, and rhythms will set the pace, because you're laying down train tracks before the train starts going. Now, after that, we're going to talk about the systems. That's why rhythms go first. You don't want to send a train if the tracks aren't finished, or if there are no tracks at all. Systems are the train. It is full steam ahead. This is a head down thing. This is where you have to focus on driving. You have to focus on driving results. You have to focus on what's in front of you. You have to deal with anything that crops up in your way. And this is where you have to look out. Look out. A train is coming. Look out. A system is running. Look out. We have made a commitment. We are doing this. This will keep happening, because that's what a system does. Once you send a system on a mission, you don't stop it later on. If a system needs attention en route, then something is wrong. If you have turned a faulty system loose on your train tracks, then it will affect the other trains as well. Your systems will either compete with each other, or they will work together. Systems create the power to take you places. Systems create the empowerment to take your teams places. Teams want to be a part of a moving train, but they also want to know that there are going to be set start and stop points along the way. If your team systems are not following clearly identified rhythms, then those same team systems that you got everybody passionately on board with can turn into a runaway train. And that will strike fear in the hearts of your team, and it will be bad for morale. You may have momentum, but not good morale. It's because you invited people to get on board a train that doesn't respect the train tracks. Teams Let me rephrase. Rhythms keep your teams safe because they keep your systems in check. And that's why rhythms do the leading. Now, this is easier said than done. One of the reasons people don't think about rhythms, they don't talk about rhythms, they don't make decisions with calendar rhythms in mind because they're invisible. Calendar rhythms go unnoticed all the time. And so what that means for us is that our rhythms must be internally tracked. I'm going to start with personal, and then we're going to move to your team as well. But your rhythms are your responsibility. Your rhythms are your responsibility. It is your responsibility to stay in sync with the rhythms that keep you going, keep you growing. You can't say, oh, I forgot. Oh, I didn't know. Oh, I double booked. My bad. It doesn't work that way. There are moving trains all over this thing. You've made commitments, you've invited people into your world, into your life. And if you derail from these rhythms, it could cause chaos. So, if you've learned to detect the passing of time, then you can keep a cadence of execution and growth. It's your responsibility to keep track of your own time. This is self-leadership. You need to be asking the questions. How long have we been talking in this meeting? You can't just be sitting there nodding, saying, okay, yeah, it's fine. It's them. It's their meeting, their turn, their time. You can't be saying that. You have a rhythm. You have to keep track of, are you in 30-minute time blocks, 90-minute time blocks? How long was this meeting supposed to go? Where are we with that? Because it will affect other things that you've committed to do in the day, or even other things you've committed to do in the week. And so many times we still show up at the destination we decided on, but we don't show up at 100%. We may show up at 20%. We may only get, not expectation met, but frustration because we didn't fulfill the expectation. We didn't put enough time or enough work because we didn't keep track of time. You have to be asking yourself, how many decisions have we resolved or dissolved this week? How many projects have we completed this month? When is the next 3-month planning session going to be? Where will a weekly commitment like that take us? How far can we carry people through an onboarding phase before they potentially capsize the team's carrying capacity? See, everyone on your team must be encouraged and even expected to track their own time. I believe in time tracking, but I don't think that just a software is enough, because if people can keep track of their time when it matters to them, then they should be able to lead themselves in other areas as well. It really does start with you. It starts with me. It starts with, do we value our time? And then because of that, will we value other people's time as well? I mean, think of it. If you personally know how much PTO you have left, then you can also know how much ROI you can expect from your time investments. When we quit looking at a timer or a calendar, then we forget that there is a scoreboard as well. You can't just forget that there's a countdown clock when you're on the court. You are out there on the court to win. You have to put points on the board, and the game is to put points on the board within a time frame. And rhythms keep you focused on the countdown clock, the timer, so that way you can keep driving points on the scoreboard. But if you divorce that, if you forget that, then you think you have all the time in the world and you're losing. So if time tracking is just another report that gets turned in to someone somewhere at the end of the week, then team members won't care. They will abdicate their own sense of accountability. But if you wanted to practice self-leadership, I would encourage you to make sure that you are planning your week proactively, that you are thinking of rhythms personally so that you can show up again and again prepared and present for every checkpoint that you find on your timeline. I'm convinced that people will feel when you're present and they notice when you're somewhere else. And I'm convinced that our teams will get empowered by our own preparation and maybe even a little embarrassed in a good way by our preparation as well. So the rhythms need to be internalized. It's not something out there. It's right here. It matters to me. It matters today. The way I keep track of time does ripple out far and wide. Now, systems are opposite. Systems must be externally trained. Systems must be externally or intentionally trained. In other words, you have to externalize what you do. If you're going to build a system, you have to externalize or separate your work from your worth. You can't just hold on to the work for yourself. You have to be willing to share it. You have to be willing to give it to others. Now, whenever you think of a system, think of someone else in the room. Whenever you think of a system, think of someone else in the room that's going to start helping you out. And if your system is in the room, then you shouldn't be. You and your system should never be in the same room. So many times we think, oh, well, this is my system, so I'm going to manage it. No, you're trying to micromanage it because you feel attached at the umbilical cord to your baby. But you have to care far, far less about your system. And you have to drop the ego and the logo, and you have to say, this is not going to look the same, but it is going to get the job done. Other people are going to run this, and they're going to run it in a way that makes sense to them, and they're going to take it further and faster than even we could. But if we're equipping and training people to do the work well, then the system can be working on our behalf even when we're not there. Your team will be as successful as the systems you equip them with. Sure, there are times where it's on people, individual people, their attitudes, their skill sets, their choices, their interactions, their chemistry, whatever. But don't be so hasty to diagnose every problem as a people problem first. Look at the systems themselves as well. Great teams work with great systems. Frustrated teams work with frustrating systems. Systems will force you and I to externalize what we do away from us. We can't just identify as a role, but we have to become a role model that others will identify with later. Systems make delegation successful. You're not ready to delegate until you have a system that is successful. I mean, I'm so thankful that they don't start a new ride, a new thrill attraction, right? at Disney until they have tested and tested and tested and tested. I'm so glad they don't put people on airplanes and go fly to another continent until they have tested and tested and tested and tested. You can't just say, well, I'm going to delegate to a person, but I'm not going to equip them with a process. If you go first, you have to find the rhythm of how that work is going to be successful. And then you map that out and you create the process. You document what you just did. You don't verbalize what you want people to do. Systems train team members how to move through the work involved quickly and confidently. Man, systems should become our best friends. Not literally, but you should love the systems you're working with and you're working on because they make you efficient and effective. Systems are focused on training, not tracking. This is so important. This is a big distinction for me. Systems are focused on training. Whenever you think of a system, a good system that's working well, it's because of the front loading, not the back loading. Whenever you see a system that is really humming, it's successful, the people like it, they're good with it, it's because they are being trained over and over again. They're being constantly updated and upgraded. They're being invested in. The system is people powered. Okay. The system has to be people powered. Whatever you're doing, you have to be pouring into the people, not just the system. And sometimes we think that the system is just a checklist that we downloaded, which is just mainly a mind dump for the day. And then we put a title on that and we say, well, this is our system now. It may be, it may not be. I mean, it's a system. I don't know if it's a good system. And we think that the system is just the checklist. And then we elevate the checklist and we say, okay, well, this checklist needs to be tracked. Did you do everything on this checklist? But it's not just a checklist that you and I micromanage over somebody else's shoulder. And it's not just a calendar that's filled with all these obligatory due dates. And that's how and where we get this high turnover. It's because people, they get signed on to a train and they don't see it stopping. And then they just have to make a decision. Do I hold out or do I try to jump and roll? But I mean, what I'm inspired by, and I'm just trying to practice, speaking the truth in love here. I believe in systems. Systems are powerful and amazing, but systems are people powered. And let's start thinking of systems more as the training side, the learning environment that's going on. Hey, we're going to create such a powerful, empowering learning environment, a learning culture that we're going to be pumping into the skill sets and the mindsets of our teams, that they're going to feel so confident and competent to do this work because they understand the system. They are, invested in the work, and they have been developed before they've been deployed. And this happens rhythmically. It's not just one and done, but this happens rhythmically. There's a culture of growth. Now, when you have systems in place, you're not necessarily just tracking the team's whereabouts all the time. That's a different side of the work equation. You have work relationships and work results. You're not just having these meetings talking about the projects all the time that are in the pipeline. You're giving people room. You're giving people space to do their job. You're giving people room and space to do their work. You yourself, you want to lead yourself. You want to boss up. You have to be really good at rhythms so that way you can keep a due date even if you don't have someone reminding you, bragging on you, nagging on you. Can you lead yourself to do the work? The system is to support you, to help you, but the system is not meant to drive you. The system is not the focus. So people are respecting that you can lead yourself, you understand rhythms, you're keeping track of time. And because of that, we can put more focus, we can be hyper focused on our processes because we trust that people have the time and the systems to work through the projects. Now, this is not just the personal side of work relationships. There's so much more that can and should be said at another time. I'm talking more so about the work results and what I have found and what I have experienced from good experiences, rough experiences. I would say, all in all, great experiences. Is it's a lot funner to be on a team that is talking about their processes than it is just trying to keep track of projects, because you feel like you're on the same team. You feel like you're working together on something and you are flowing because you are sharing rhythms. So work on your rhythms. Do that more often. Do that more openly. Have conversations around the calendar. Have conversations around your culture. Have conversations about who you're becoming. Focus on your rhythms. Many times we will launch teams that start strong and then they just kind of limp along after that. They have commitment though, and we have to respect that. And there will be a pure, genuine willingness to continue with the parts that can be managed. But without a successful system, then we ourselves or others will just keep reverting back to a style of micromanaging that becomes stifling. The systems themselves should fit into the rhythms that we find on the calendar. And absolutely, no system is perfect. That's why we're constantly working on them. That's why we're constantly changing them. That's why we don't elevate them. We don't put them on a pedestal. Whether it's an organizational system or whether it's a certain system of thought, the system itself may just be too difficult to manage. And that will depend on different factors, which we don't have time to get into. Maybe it's size, maybe it's skill level. It could be internal, relational, whatever. But when you and I develop sustainable calendar rhythms, then the systems we create can be successfully deployed. Systems were never meant to be high maintenance, something that need a lot of attention, a lot of hand-holding. They were meant to work on our behalf. They are meant to give us time back. They are meant to empower people to do what they love and what they are great at. And I have talked a little bit more about team life, team culture, but I wanted you to see how they bridge together. But don't use this. Please don't use this as a gotcha moment to say, see, that's what's wrong. They are the problem. No, you are the problem and you are the solution. If you will honor your time, if you will respect other people's time, you will find a way to make everything work together. Because really, everyone can win if we are willing to be patient and think differently. So that is it. I just broke the 1 hour mark. I really appreciate y'all being along for the ride. And I want to remind you, there is a fail-proof planning guide, a PDF waiting on you. It's my way of saying thank you for being on this coaching conversation today. You can download it for free, work on it instantly. It'll help you get started so you can get better. Just put in your name and email, and it will put you in the email community as well. We'll be back tomorrow with another round of Prepare to Go There, talking about rhythms and systems all week long. I'm going to be putting these two ideas together. How do they work well together? Where do we get started? I hope you're a part of that conversation as well. Y'all, this is super painful to say out loud because I am not there yet, but I forget the mistakes and the successes so that way I can keep pressing forward because the future is so much bigger, so much brighter than you and I know. So let's put in the work today. Let's count the cost. Let's pay up sooner than later. And let's prepare to go there. Stay awesome. I'll see you tomorrow.